Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Racing Show here at RacePlazaMedia. My name is Pia, and today I want to talk to you about the top 5 Argentinian F1 drivers that I think you should know about. I'm sure you've already heard the news. Franco Colapinto is taking over the Williams seat for the remainder of the season for the last 9 races. He will be driving in Logan Sargent's car. Of course, we've been kind of waiting for the news. Logan Sargent has not been doing so well this season. And so they decided that this was it in terms of performance that Logan Sargent can deliver. So Williams decided to replace him with Franco Colapinto, the 21-year-old Argentinian driver. When I found out that news, of course, I was a little bit bummed for Sargent because nobody wants to be replaced mid-season. I was happy for Franco Colapinto that he's getting a chance to drive in an F1 car for 9 total races this season, which is a huge undertaking, especially because he's still fairly new to Formula 2, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So I wanted to take a deep dive and find out a little bit more about other Argentinian drivers because me personally, I didn't know a lot of Argentinian drivers. So I did some research, and today I want to talk to you about the top 5 Argentinian drivers that I think you should know about. First up, we have Juan Manuel Fangio. He is probably the most famous Argentinian driver. He is still considered by some people one of the best F1 drivers in F1 history. He drove back in the 1950s and he won a total of 5 driver championships with 4 different manufacturers. His record of 5 driver championships stood tall for 46 years until our very own Michael Schumacher took that record away from him. However, Fangio still holds the record for most race win, which is at about a 46%. But I do want you to keep in mind that back in the day, they had very few races. For example, in his first year that he won the driver championship in 1951, he was on the podium 5 times out of the total of 7 races. Nonetheless, his achievements are not to be laughed at. He's a very impressive driver. Even Ayrton Senna said, even if we or I, Ayrton Senna, would break all of the records, we can never forget the huge achievements that Fangio has accomplished in Formula 1. And Fangio is still the oldest driver to ever have won an F1 Drivers' Championship at the age of 46. Next up, I want to talk to you about a driver who's one of only 2 additional F1 drivers, Argentinian F1 drivers, to have ever won a race. His name is José Froilán González, and he also drove in the 1950s alongside Fangio. He drove a total of 9 seasons in F1. However, he never competed for a full season. During those 9 seasons, he earned 2 wins, and most notably, the first ever F1 win for Ferrari in 1951. He was also runner-up to the driver championship in 1954, the year that Fangio won one of his 5 driver championship titles. González was not your typical F1 driver. He had more of a physique of a little bit of a wrestler. He was a little bit more muscular, more stocky built compared to many of the other drivers. And people say that he would have probably won a lot more races, maybe even a championship, because he's only won 2 during his 9th season because he never competed in a full season. So it would be quite interesting to see a different world where González would have competed maybe in a full season or maybe multiple full seasons if he would have won more races and even a championship. And number 3, we have Carlos Reutemann. He's another driver who was able to earn a win in Formula 1. Actually, he ended up winning 12 races in total throughout his career, the last one being in 1981 at the Belgium Grand Prix. His career, he had many ups and downs. He switched many teams. Some choices were maybe not necessarily the best. However, he's still remembered as the guy that needed to know things things. Even before Ayrton Senna, he was the one who enjoyed lengthy debriefs. He wanted to know exactly what was happening in the car. He just needed to know things. Unfortunately, his performance, like I said, was a little bit inconsistent. Some people even said it was depending on how he felt. Maybe it was more of a mental thing. If he was in the right place, he had a good race. And when he didn't, he just didn't. However, 12 race wins in his F1 career is still something to remember and to celebrate because, as we know, not every F1 driver ever has the pleasure of winning a singular race. Speaking of, we've had 26 Argentinian drivers on the F1 grid over the entire lifespan of Formula One, and only the 3 that I've mentioned so far have won a single or multiple Formula One races. So we have Fangio, González, and Reutemann. They're the only Argentinian drivers so far to win a Formula One race. And many of the Argentinian drivers have only competed in a single race weekend or a handful of races. There were truly only 5 more Argentinian drivers who have competed in 10 or more races thus far. And number 4, Gastón Mazzacane, is the most recent Argentinian driver. Before now, Franco Colapinto, of course. And he's the most recent driver also with more than 10 race starts. Indeed, he participated in 21 Formula One races in his 2-season career. He started his F1 career in 2000 as part of the Minardi F1 team, and then the following year he changed to the Prost team. However, only 4 races into that season, he was dropped. He unfortunately didn't earn any championship points during his career. His big highlight was when he was able to overtake Mika Häkkinen at a damp race in Indianapolis. In that race, Mika Häkkinen was struggling with his tire because he had made a gamble at the beginning of the race that unfortunately didn't pay off. So Mazzacane ended up in 3rd for quite a while without stopping. But then when he went into the pit stops, the track or the asphalt was still quite wet, so he ran over 2 of his pit crews, and then later he retired the car. And next up, last but not least, we have, of course, our 5th driver that I think you should know, especially now, is Franco Colapinto, the 21-year-old Argentinian driver who has now officially joined the Williams team for the last 9 races of this season. And I do have to tell you, his resume is quite impressive, as expected, if he gets called up this early into the F1 grid. So let me give you a little bit of background on Franco. He started karting at the age of 9. Of course, he's karting. Everybody on the F1 grid was karting. So he started at the age of 9, and then in 2018, he competed for the very first time in the Formula 4 Championship. Actually, he only participated in the last race of the season. It's very common for the junior categories for drivers to just drop in and out for a couple of the races. So he only participated in that final race of that F4 Spanish Championship, and he won that race. And that caught the attention of none other than Fernando Alonso. So he ended up signing him to his team for the 2019 season. And what a season it was. He ended up winning 11 races. He landed on the podium 13 times. He had 10 pole positions. So that year, he won the F4 Spanish Championship as part of Fernando Alonso's DriveX team. Then in 2021, he did double duty. He did single-seater as well as sports cars. So in sports cars, he competed at the Asian Le Mans Series, the European Le Mans Series, as well as competed as the youngest driver on the grid as part of the 24-hour race at Le Mans. He also competed that same year for the first time in Formula 3, where he ended up on the podium 5 times during his rookie season, including 2 race wins. Then in 2023, he continued his career in Formula 3, where he took another 2 race wins, 3 additional podiums, and he ended up 4th overall in the Drivers' Championship, so that he ended up graduating to Formula 2 in 2024. So yes, this year is his very first year in Formula 2. He's also part of the Williams Driver Academy since 2023. Not only did Franco make his FP1 debut in an F1 car at the British Grand Prix this year, but now he was called up to join the big boys for the remainder of the season. So I have to say, his career is already really impressive. I do hope he does well this season. I mean, he only has 9 races. He doesn't have the pressure necessarily on him that he needs to keep his seat, because his seat won't be available next season, because Carlos Sainz is, as you probably already know, joining Williams for next season. But we will see if maybe, hopefully, depending on how he does this year, he will have a seat again in the future. All right, folks, these are the top 5 Argentinian drivers that I think you should know about. If you know any additional F1 Argentinian drivers that I didn't mention that you think are worthy to note, let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you were familiar with any of them. I think Fangio is the one that most people know about. Of course, now Franco Colapinto is definitely the other one as well, but maybe did you know any of the other ones that I've mentioned? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you watching our videos, and remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again here at the Daily Racing Show with some F1 weekend and MotoGP weekend recaps. So tune in for those. Bye, guys.